Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. Welcome to this month's classic episode of Let's Talk Business. We are excited to have with us Ashely Micciche. She is the CEO of True North Retirement Advising in Portland, Oregon. The WCWB hosts two Let's Talk Business episodes a month, one on the first Thursday of the month and one on the third Thursday from noon to 1. Before we get started, if you could please mute yourself. If you're having an issue with the audio, you can always call in, and if you have questions, you can use the chat function, and at the end we'll have some time for questions and answers, and at that point you can unmute yourself. This webinar is being recorded and will be uploaded to our Let's Talk Business library on our website, where you can find other presentations on various topics of interest. Really quickly, I'm going to go over some of the resources that the WCWB has to offer. If you are interested in starting your own business, our Business Enterprise Startup Training BEST might be the program for you. BEST is an 8-week course with one webinar per week, and you will receive access to a business plan web application that you will use to create a comprehensive business plan. And by the time you finish, you'll have a business plan ready to seek funding. You can reach out to us at the WCWB to inquire about payment plans and scholarships. We are currently offering free business coaching and are scheduling coaching sessions on Zoom or over the phone right now. Eventually, we'll be back in the office offering in-person coaching. Coaching topics can include startup assistance, business plan writing, marketing, social media 101, and operations. And we also have a new coach who is a CPA and specializes in accounting and finances. The WCWB is located in the Thurston EDC and CBNI in the SBSCC Lacey campus. In the Thurston EDC, we have a number of partner organizations that assist entrepreneurs. And looks like someone's trying to hop on real quick. I'm just going to admit them. Perfect. We have a bunch of partner organizations that assist entrepreneurs and business owners at various stages and aspects of business. So the Small Business Development Center provides free business counseling to organizations, and they typically work with organizations that have already started business or are in their earlier stages of business development. The Washington Procurement Technical Assistance Center, or PTAC, helps organizations to contract with city, state, and federal governments. If you think that you have a service that can be sold to the government, they can help you find and pursue those contracts. We also offer a SCORE mentorship program. If you're looking for mentorship, this program offers free mentorship provided typically by retired business individuals that are volunteering their time to assist entrepreneurs and business owners in earlier stages of business development. We have our own version of Shark Tank called Think. It is a group of 40 local investors who are interested in investing in local Washington businesses. And as seen in Shark Tank, you would pitch your idea to the investors, who in return ask difficult questions. They're typically looking for businesses that have high growth potential. And we have the Lacey Makerspace. It's located in St. Martin's campus. It's like an inventor's workshop. You can create prototypes, or if you're just looking to get creative, the Lacey Makerspace has a ton of cool tools. If you are interested in pursuing more of our services, you can check out our calendar to see upcoming programs. And for more information about what the WCWB offers, you can email us, visit our website, or give us a call, or check us out on our social media. So I am happy to introduce Ashely at this point. I'm going to give over the host controls so she can share her presentation. Thank you so much for being here, and you can take it away.
Thank you, Robin. And I'm super excited to be here. I love hearing in the introduction all the ways that your organization is supporting business owners, so that's really exciting. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. Okay. Can you see that now, Robin?
Yes.
All right. So today's topic is how to protect and grow the value of your business during a pandemic. And so my background is on the financial planning side and retirement planning side, and then also exit planning. So I'm a certified exit planner. And I talk a lot with business owners and groups like yours about how to value your business, and how to pursue that exit path. So, no matter what stage of business you're in, I think understanding what that exit path looks like for you and continuing to try to reiterate, and think through that, I think really helps to kind of keep the end in mind. But obviously, with COVID, once COVID hit, it kind of threw everything upside down. And so hopefully my talk today will be relevant for your situation and helpful, in helping you understand both the value of your business today. You'll come away with the tools you need to actually do a valuation for your business today. And then some other things that can help both protect and then grow that value once you know what the value is. Okay. So today I'm going to talk about four main things. First of all, I just mentioned this, valuing your business. It's really the first step in protecting and growing the value of your business. If you are going to, drive to Seattle from where you live, you've never been to Seattle before, you need point by point directions. And so you enter wherever you're going into the GPS, and it tells you, turn here, turn there, and how to get there. Well, knowing what your valuation is of your business and how much your business is worth today is just like telling the GPS, here's my current location. And so the GPS can only tell you how to get to where you're going if you enter your current location on the GPS. So it's very foundational whether you are wanting to exit your business this year or 10 years from now, or maybe you've never thought of it before, that's okay. But it's extremely important to understand the value of your business as it stands today. So I'm going to give you the tools to actually be able to do that. And then once we know the value of the business, we can start talking about uh, practical ways that you can protect that value. Um, and specifically, one of the things that I think is really relevant right now that COVID has made top of mind is the fact that I think most of us have thought about what happens to my family, what happens to my business if I were to get sick, if I were to die. And I think COVID, one of the benefits of this environment that we're in is that most of us have thought about, gosh, what would happen if I got coronavirus, if I became sick? And so it kind of prompts us to do the things necessary to help protect our families and protect our business if the unthinkable were to happen. And then for any of you who are in family businesses or want to pass your business to the next generation, I'll talk about some really unique opportunities that exist today where the clock really is ticking, in terms of being able to take advantage of this favorable environment that exists today specifically for family businesses. And then lastly, I'll talk about specific opportunities that exist in this economic climate that we're in this pandemic climate that we're in, that can help you accelerate your future growth. Just a little bit of background about myself. So this is my father and myself. I joined my father in his financial advisory practice straight out of college. This was back in 2007. And I ended up getting a business finance degree. I went to Portland State University, got a business finance degree pretty much right after school. I joined him. And right away, I just kind of stumbled into this on accident, but I started working with business owners. And I was really interested in doing 401k plan consulting and other retirement plans for businesses. So like if you've heard of simple plans or SEP IRAs, that is something that I have pretty much specialized specialized in since day one. And so I ended up working with all of these business owners because most of the plans that I manage, they're small business plans, anywhere from one employee to, my largest plan still only has about 200 employees, and everywhere in between. And so I found that I loved working with business owners, and their needs are just so varied and unique, especially when it comes to planning your own retirement. And then what happened about 7 or 8 years ago now, I had a business owner client who suddenly died, and I watched from the sidelines as his business crumbled over the course of about 2 or 3 years. His wife came in to run the business, and she had not worked a day in the business previously. She didn't know anything about running that particular business and didn't have that background. And she did the best that she could, but it was very sad to watch because about 2 years later, after her husband had died, the business was sold for like pennies on the dollar as far as what it was worth. And that was a real wake up call for me because I realized that I had to start having these conversations about exiting with business owners and planning that and making that a key part of, a good business has a strategic plan for growth, but what about the strategic plan for exit? And so that's a big part of my focus on what I help clients with today. And so we do business exit planning. I still do 401k and small business retirement plan consulting, retirement focused financial planning, and it's all tied into that, and then investment management as well. And I live here in Portland. I grew up in the Portland area. I lived in Camas, Washington for about a decade or so, but I'm here just outside of Portland right now. Okay, so moving on to topic number one, which is valuing your business. So one of the interesting things about valuing your business is that, let me pause here real quick. I think Robin, when there's people in the waiting room, since I have control of the meeting, do I have to go ahead and admit them?
Yes, would you?
Okay, sorry about that.
Oh, that's
I
great.
see. I saw that there were a couple people in there. Okay, we should be good now. All right, so when it comes to valuing your business, almost nobody knows what their business is worth. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And there was actually a study done in 2016 by the Business Exit Institute. And what they found was that only 2% of business owners know the value of their business, and the rest of us have no clue what our business is worth. And business valuations can be very expensive if you want to pay somebody to value your business. A lot of times it can cost $10,000 or more. And so a lot of times what business owners rely on instead are these rules of thumb valuation. Like in my industry, my business could sell for 2 times revenue or 2.5x or some multiple of some metric in your business. But the problem with that is that they can be wildly inaccurate because it doesn't take into account the specific nuances of your particular business. So we need to understand what the business is worth and get an accurate value for the business. You cannot embark on whether it's a plan to exit or a plan to grow the value of your business if you don't know what the business is worth today. So there's a tool that exists out there that allows you to value your business for free. And I'll in the next slide, I'll share with you how you can do that. But all it takes to get a very accurate value for your business today are 8 pieces of information. And I've listed them here on the screen. That's my daughter, Keegan. That was her first dental visit. She's probably like 3 years old there. She loves the dentist, unlike her mother. And but this valuation and these metrics are for a sample dental practice. So this mirrors a client of ours who sold her dental practice about 6 years ago. And so I just kind of plugged in the numbers here in terms of her revenue, pre-tax income, etc. So So no matter what industry you're in, whether you're in manufacturing or consulting or you have a dental practice, whatever that is, you gather these 8 pieces of information as it pertains to your business, and then you can enter them into the valuation tool that I'm going to provide. It's basically a software database, and in this database today are over 50 million businesses across the country. So no matter what industry you're in, you're able to get really accurate comparative data that applies to your specific business in your specific industry. So when I enter all of those 8 pieces of information into this database, I get a valuation for Keegan's Family Dental of 600, almost 690,000. So now I know, okay, I know the value of my business. And what's interesting is I've tested this too. I've talked to business owners who have ran their valuation through this software and have also paid somebody quite a bit of money to do it. And it's usually within about 5 to 10% of that valuation that they paid thousands of dollars for. So those 8 pieces of information, they're really key in their key metrics for determining value. And you can enter, the software tool is very robust, so you can enter many more data points than these 8, but these are the 8 pieces of information that are really key. Because the goal, what I was trying to do, was make it very easy for business owners to get a very accurate valuation for your business. So if you had to spend hours digging up 3 years of tax returns and financial statements and stuff, I knew it would just be like a non-starter. So I made it as easy as possible in order to still get an accurate valuation. So the really neat thing about this tool as well is, other than just being able to provide you with an accurate value, estimated value, you can also see how your business compares to other like-kind businesses, both in your area and across the country. So in this instance, you can see it's classified as offices of dentists. They're down there in the bottom left-hand box there in blue. It says they rank 33,928 in terms of their business value of 370,000 offices of dentists across the country. So in this database, there are 370,000 other offices of dentists to get this good comparative data from. And then for Keegan's Family Dental, she can also see how her business value compares just in the local geographic area as well, and that's in that green box down there. Okay, so if you want to gather those 8 pieces of information, use the valuation tool to value your own business, I created a checklist that you can get for free. If you go to truenorthra.com/value my business, you can download the checklist, and you can also get free access to the valuation tool. And that's unlimited. So we actually pay to access this service. It's through a third party who gathers all of this data about business value. So we pay for it, and then we make it available to anybody who wants to use it, because I find more than anything, once you know the value of the business, it sort of unleashes all these other planning and protecting, growing, exiting your business. It's like the Pandora's box that helps to sort of move that process along and helps you make progress on whatever it is that you're trying to do in terms of growing, protecting, exiting your business, etc. So the checklist too, it allows you to kind of gather those 8 pieces of information, but it also explains what each of those metrics are, and it helps to, where would I find this? Accounts receivable, you'd find that on your balance sheet. Most of these you can find, if you have financial statements, you can find them on your income statement, your balance sheet. A lot of it you can find on last year's tax return. So these are all data points that you shouldn't have to dig too deep in order to find. Okay, so once we know the value of the business, then we can start to think about, okay, how do I protect that value? There's sort of 2 paths, right? We want to grow the value of the business, but we also want to protect and preserve what we do have. And so there many, many, many things that you can do to protect and preserve the value of your business. But one of the things that I want to focus on in this presentation is one of the easiest, simplest things that every business owner should do, but almost no business owners have in place. Um, and that is your business continuity instructions. And so what that identifies is what it does is it gets all that business critical information out of your head and onto paper. I've also heard this referred to as a business will, because it addresses a lot of those things. And this is something that we do for our clients, but it's also something that you can do on your own, and it takes, maybe an hour of your time, and it's like the best hour that you could spend on your business, this week or this month. So the key elements of a business continuity instructions, they look like this. So it's a document, and that document, once it's completed, you would put, maybe a copy in your office. You would put a copy in your safe deposit box. If you're married, or you have, someone that you trust, like a trusted advisor, a CPA, a financial advisor, your exit planning advisor, whoever that is, you would give a copy to them as well, so that they are aware that this document exists. You want to let if you have other employees, especially like key employees, you don't necessarily have to share the details of the document with them, but you should let them know, hey, this exists, just so you know. So if something happens to me, this is where you can find the business continuity instructions. And it really helps to stabilize things and provide instructions for whoever takes over, whether it's a spouse or another employee, what's going to happen to your business. So the business continuity instructions has basically 4 key elements. One is a list of your trusted advisors. And I think about this, a really good example of this is in the context of if you are married. So I'm married. My husband is not involved in the day-to-day business operations of the business. And for most spouses, they have no idea who you even use for payroll, who your business attorney is, how to contact them, etc. So you would list all of your trusted advisors. And I gave some examples there, your CPA, your attorney, your exit planning advisor if you're working with someone like myself, a payroll vendor, your banking. Where's your banking relationship with? A lot of times, nobody but you as the business owner even knows where the bank accounts are held. And then once you list all of the individual advisors and their contact information, then you want to provide instructions to whoever is going to be implementing these instructions on who to contact and when. So, for example, let's say you have 10 employees. Who should inform your employees that you have died or become incapacitated? And how do you want them to know? Like, do you want your office manager to just send everybody a text like, oh, hey, Ashely got hit by a bus last night. Sorry, go find another job. Like there are definitely strategic ways we want to handle informing both employees and customers to prevent them from just immediately flying out and going elsewhere. So the goal with this is to protect the business as best as possible when it's in that crisis mode. And so who and how and when you inform is very important. When it comes to customers, do you want them all to be notified right away? Do you want them to be notified only if they ask? Who should do that? How should that happen? So you probably have a clear idea of how you want your clients or your customers to be informed, and by who and when. But nobody can read your mind, and so it's very important to document this, so that you can, again, protect your business when it's in a crisis mode. And then internally, who should take over the financial decisions, operations, etc. This might all be one person, maybe an employee of yours. Maybe you want your spouse to come in or somebody else to come in. And then you want to document all the existing arrangements that you have in the business. So if you have a buy-sell agreement, any insurance policies, if you have lines of credit, other debts, where a copy of all of these critical documents can be found as it relates to your business. And then lastly and importantly is what should happen? What do you want to have happen after if you were to die or become incapacitated? I was just talking to a potential client this morning and I asked him about this. He's a consultant and it's basically him, his wife, and one other employee. And he does most of the day-to-day operations, but his wife is also involved in the business. And um, both he and she would want to sell the business as quickly as possible. And so you can give your spouse a good sense of what the business is worth. Like the business is worth X, and it's probably going to be worth Y if I'm no longer in the picture. What is the minimum value that you should accept to give that spouse or whoever that is that's going to take over ownership, give that person some guidance as far as here's what my business is worth and the minimum value that you should accept if you were to sell the business, or maybe you want to transfer it to another employee. So what should happen to the business after you die or become incapacitated is that last piece to address with all of this. But again, every element of this, the goal here is just to get it out of your head onto paper, somewhere in someone's hands who can actually implement this in the hours, days, and weeks after you die or become incapacitated if things don't go as planned. And the result of this, the goal here is to just have guidance and more clarity and direction for family, employees, etc., anybody who is going to suffer as a result of an untimely exit and during a crisis time. So this goes a long way towards it, and it's not some complicated legal document that you're going to have to pay, hundreds or thousands of dollars to an attorney to do. You can put this together informally yourself without a lot of complexity. So moving on to family business considerations. So some specific opportunities that exist right now that may not exist a few months from now, next year, etc. And there's this kind of collision of two things right now. First of all, because of coronavirus, most businesses, I read something like 2/3 of businesses at least have been impacted in terms of their value during COVID. And then so you have lower valuations for businesses, but then colliding with that, you also have this incredibly favorable tax environment especially when it comes to estate and gifting. And that makes right now, 2020, an ideal time if you are going to seriously look at doing some gifting, particularly when it comes to your business. And this opportunity may soon evaporate. So the reason why the clock is ticking right now is because we're in a presidential election year, and this is just, I'm talking facts here. This is not my opinion or political anything, but Biden has already been campaigning on raising taxes, especially gift taxes, estate taxes, etc. So if Biden becomes president after November, we're likely to see the tax environment change down the road as new policies, new laws, new regulation, new tax environment, etc., as that kind of takes shape under a new presidential administration. Taxes may go up anyways, even if Biden is not elected and Trump is in office for another 4 years, just because there's a lot of stimulus right now that's being pumped into the economy, and we have to pay for that somehow, and sometimes higher taxes is the only way to do that. So favorable tax climate right now today that may or may not continue in the future. So what specifically am I talking about here? So this chart, there's a lot of numbers on here, but it goes back all the way to 2007. And the estate and gift tax rates haven't changed a whole lot. They've fluctuated over the last 13 years between, 0 in 2010, but mostly in like the 35 to 45% range. So if you were to make a gift, or if you were to die and pass on your estate to your heirs, above a certain threshold, it's taxed at a pretty high rate, as high as, right now, that's as high as 40%. However, there is what's called a exemption amount. So if you look at the estate and GST, which is gift tax exemptions, in 2020, it's 11.58 million. So that 40% tax rate that we currently have is not going to apply until your estate gets above that 11.5 million threshold. So for the vast majority of everyone out there, you are not going to pay estate taxes, because our estates are usually worth much, much less than that 11.5 million. Now, the other thing, the one that I circled there, is that the lifetime gift exemption is the same. So you can actually transfer assets currently right now in 2020. If you have a business, let's say you have a really valuable piece of property or some other asset, you can actually gift that up to $11.5 million and not be taxed on it. That's your lifetime exemption. So you can gift that amount over your lifetime, and in 2020, that's the cap on it. Now, what's interesting, if you're married, it's double this. So you can give away like 23 million, whatever that figure is, during your lifetime, and pay zero taxes on it. But you can see, if you go back even to 2007, that those exemptions were much, much lower. So it is literally the most favorable time to gift that has ever existed from a tax standpoint. And so for a family business, let's say you have a valuable family business, you want to look seriously at transferring as much of that ownership as possible in a favorable tax climate. And the beauty is, again, you have lower valuations. So you're going to eat into that lifetime gift exemption much less than maybe you would have a year ago when valuations are much higher. So it's kind of this perfect storm of favorable tax, lower valuations, that make now a very ideal time to gift and transfer the business to a next generation if you are involved in a family business. All right, so the last thing I want to talk about is a couple of other unique opportunities. Well, one other unique opportunity in particular that is very relevant for this COVID environment that we're in. So I read, there was a survey that I read. It came out pretty recently. I want to say this was like April. So right after the collapse of the stock market in March, right after all the shutdowns started, there was a survey done by the National Center for the Middle Market. And what they found is that COVID was going to be catastrophic, meaning they're not likely to recover, catastrophic for about 25% of middle market businesses. So middle market is basically is 10 million in revenue to $1 billion revenue in terms of business size. So these are pretty large businesses where COVID is going to be catastrophic. And then when you move down in terms of business size, in terms of revenue, those numbers tend to get even bigger. If you look at little mom and shop retail stores or restaurants or things like, a lot of these smaller businesses are just not going to survive. And it's a very sad situation, and it's difficult to kind of navigate out of that. You also have a lot of businesses that, coming into COVID, and this is small and large businesses alike, it's for the last several years, it's been a lot easier to borrow, and every the sort of like the rising tide lifts all ships. And so a lot of businesses that maybe weren't in a healthy financial state, maybe they were over leveraged and had too much debt, they were still able to do okay in the growing economic environment. But now that COVID hit, they're under extreme distress. And so what ends up happening a lot of times is they end up having to lay off employees or they go out of business. But it's important to look at what does the climate look like for other businesses that are similar to my own. And growing through maybe a partnership with another business that's maybe struggling. Maybe there are really amazing employees that have been laid off from some of your competitors that you are able to take on and kind of acquire that talent. So it's a really good time to look at some of the opportunities and not just, it's very easy to kind of hide in our own shell and kind of protect ourselves, but to keep your eyes open to opportunities that might exist, because a lot of other businesses out there are really struggling, is a huge one. And strategic acquisition, this could be acquiring a competitor. So, similar to the lower valuations in family businesses, the same applies to a lot of businesses across the board. Maybe there is a competitor out there who has no other way out, and they actually need someone like you to come in and kind of relieve them from this. But maybe there's a client list you can buy, maybe there's some inventory or other assets that will benefit them, because they don't see other options, but then can also help you as well. So there are a lot of opportunities right now for financially stable, profitable businesses who are likely to come out the other side and still exist after coronavirus and basically survive this pandemic. So as it relates to value and particularly to strategic acquisition and growing that way, I want to talk a little bit about just helping you to understand in a very straightforward and easy way how revenue impacts business valuation. So on the bottom line there, this is just across the board, all different industries, and it's generally applied. And so it's not going to be consistent necessarily in your industry, but the rule of thumb applies across the board. So let's say in your particular industry, a a business that generates $500,000 a year in revenue or less could sell for 1x revenue. So if you have a business that is going to do $100,000 in revenue this year, maybe you can sell that business for $100,000, 1x revenue. But as revenue grows, it's an exponential increase in business valuation. So if you're able to get your value to up, let's say you're able to get your revenue up, maybe through a strategic acquisition, you're able to get that revenue up from say $500,000 to $1 million. Your business is no longer worth 1x revenue, it's now worth 3x revenue. And you can see as you climb that growth mountain in terms of revenue, the valuation increases substantially to the point where, a company that's maybe generating 10 or 15 million or 20 million in revenue could potentially sell for 10 times that, not 1x that. And this is why, you have these businesses and there's such a focus on scaling up and growth and all of that. A big part of that is because as you sort of move up this growth ladder in your revenue, the multiplier in valuation is pretty substantial. So and again, this is not something that should be taken as gospel. Maybe you want to stay small, maybe you don't want to grow substantially, but it's important to understand at the same time that the revenue and the size of the business is going to impact the valuation multiple that you could get when it comes time to selling your business. So there's nothing wrong with, staying small, but it does impact the valuation, and it's important to know that so that you can sort of weigh the pros and cons of staying the size that you are today versus maybe doing a strategic acquisition or trying to grow in a different way. So some takeaways. First of all, value your business. I really encourage you to do that. I put the link there for you to go ahead and get the worksheet and the access to the valuation tool in order to do that. I also implore you to write your business continuity instructions. It's one of the most important things that you can do. That's also the least time intensive in getting that set up. And then also just keeping your eyes open to opportunities that exist today in this current environment. Maybe it's some gifting you could be doing, or strategic acquisition, or some other opportunity that exists because of what's happened with valuations and a lot of other businesses out there that are just really, really struggling right now. And then I'll turn it back over to Robin. Robin, do you want to handle how do you want to handle the questions?
Yeah, this is a great time. Are you ready to transition?
Yeah, sure.
Hey, thank you so much. That was extremely informative. So we'll open up the rest of the time for questions. If you have a question, you can unmute yourself, or you can just put it in the chat box and I can read it out loud. Does anyone have any questions? And Ashley, thank you for putting up your contact information.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank you for everyone who joined us today. Be sure to check out our Let's Talk Business library on our website for this episode. Once we get it uploaded, it'll be up there, and along with our previous episodes on various topics. And I'll just ask one more time, if anyone has any questions, go ahead and unmute yourself. And if not, oh, let's see. We do have a question in the chat. Ashley, can you speak a bit more about starting a retirement plan for a small business?
Sure. Yeah, I think the place to start is to look at, because there's a bunch of different options. The place to start is just looking at how much you are able and willing to fund. So a good example of that, if you just can only start with maybe a few $1,000s, maybe just looking at an IRA or doing a Roth would be a pretty simple way to go. And on the other hand, if you want to and need to save a substantial amount year in and year out, then a 401k or a profit sharing plan on top of that is a great way to go, because instead of being limited to a few $1,000s, you can save over $50,000 this year just inside of your plan. The other considerations are employees. So if you have other employees and you do a retirement plan through your business, you'll need to think through that, because you have to include them as well. So you want to make sure that the numbers pencil out and that you can afford, from a business standpoint, you can afford to make any of those employer matching contributions that you would be required to make if you ran the retirement plan through the business. So yeah, anyone who is interested who doesn't have a retirement plan in place, feel free to reach out to me via email. Usually the place we start is if you send me a census, just like some basic information, I can run an analysis that will show you how much what the outlay would be financially for the business, and the different options side by side. So if you did option A, option B, option C in terms of retirement plan design, and then you can kind of make an educated decision about what would be the best fit for your particular business.
Great, thank you, Ashley. Jen, did that answer your question? Okay, great. Does anyone else have any other questions for Ashely? Okay, thank you again so much, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Ashely. That was great. And we look forward to having you all join us again for another Let's Talk Business. And just thank you so much. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Robin.
Thanks, Ashely.
Do you need me to stay on for anything? Are we good?
Nope, you're good.
All right. Have a good rest of your day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.